experience and innovation, and tradition and transformation. The future of work is being shaped right now in real time. Artificial intelligence, automation, remote collaboration, global connectivity, no longer buzzwords. They're here, right? We live it every single day. But here's the thing that makes a difference. Machines are smart, but they don't have what you have. They don't have the judgment built on decades of experience. They don't have the human touch that builds trust. And they don't have the wisdom to see beyond the task into the bigger picture. That's your superpower. Okay, that's what you bring. As we go through today, I want to leave you with 3 opportunities to think about as you move through. The first one, reinvention. At this stage of your career, some of you may not be asking, what do I want to be when I grow up? But you're asking, what do I want to do next? Reinvention is not about starting over from scratch, from zero. This is where a lot of people are a little afraid of. It's about using what you know to open up new doors. Number 2, influence. You don't need to have a management title to have influence. People are watching how you lead, how you show up, how you treat others. You have the power to mentor, to open doors, and to shape cultures that are better than the ones you inherited. Sustainability. Now, this one's important. A long, successful career isn't built on burnout. Okay? It's built on balance, boundaries, and alignment with what actually matters to you. This is about designing a career that supports your life, not the other way around. Today will be full of ideas, conversations, and sessions created with you in mind to help you stay relevant, grow as leaders, and to write the next chapter of your career. So don't just sit back, jump in, ask the uncomfortable questions of us. We've all been through it. Share your experiences. Make connections that will extend beyond these walls. Because the future of work doesn't just happen, it's built by us. And with your experience, perspective, and leadership, I truly believe that the best chapters of your career are still ahead. Thank you very much. Let's get started. Sorry, I've been pushing through these. So let me make some quick introductions. You know me, my name is Dennis Leong. I've been in the aerospace industry for over 26 years, most of that at Northrop Grumman, building satellite systems. I did retire about 5.5 years ago, so that gives me the opportunity now to do these kind of events and also to teach local universities like Long Beach and UCLA on their CubeSat programs. So next, I'll have Andy introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. First off, I want to give a shout out to Dennis for having the vision for having this event, inviting someone like me. Okay, my name's Andy Tian, and I'm a marketer. Now, you may be wondering what a marketer is doing in an industry like this, right? The aerospace industry. But I would surmise to you that marketing and project management and AI is highly transferable, right? So that's kind of my niche. So let's start with screen number 1.
Before we do that, let's do a quick introduction first. And we'll
Okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rick Baumgartner. I've had a lot of roles and titles, mostly involved around the entertainment industry, entertainment and media industry, what is colloquially known as Hollywood. And I recently got an opportunity to work for a project for the U.S. Navy that got me sort of interested in what I could sort of contribute to aerospace. So that was definitely a recent pivot of mine. And I think my ability to keep pivoting in my career has led to some really interesting things. And this is one of them. So I look forward to your questions. Look forward to hearing from you about what you're concerned about. And I'm eager to get started. Thank you.
So one more thing. This is the schedule that I have planned today. I guess it's a little bit hard to read, but we're right here, just introductions. The next section we're going to talk about is staying relevant in the changing workforce. Then we're going to go to career reinventions and mid-career pivots. And then I will talk about executive presence. We'll break for lunch. Then the afternoon track, we're going to talk about personal branding. And then
Entertainment field. Sure, some people are with, a studio for 10, 20 years. However, the vast majority of people go project to project and often not with the same company. Teams sort of coalesce, they do the project, and then they go on to other projects. So reinventing and pivoting is, to me, it's sort of one of the ways you can keep working at all in the entertainment business. So it's a continuous process. Here are some of the titles I've had over the years. So the titles with like what's on my card, and then roles. Those are just some of the things that I've done. One of the titles that I didn't include was I was also a COVID safety supervisor during the lockdown. So we did that for 18 months for a show over at Universal called Access Hollywood. So I got to give a COVID safety spiel to all of the celebrities that came in, to all of the crew every day, the same spiel for about 18 months, 6 days a week. So that's just, and that's not even all of the titles that I've had. So I've been sort of reinventing and pivoting really since I got here. Sensitive. The key to reinventing and pivoting is having options. The key to developing options is having conversations. Both Andy and Dennis talked about conversations in their panels, and that's what I'm really going to focus on in my talk here. A conversation where two or more people talk and listen to each other, sharing ideas, information, and opinions. And I can also say that AI is also, you can also have a conversation with AI. I frequently have conversations with AIs to develop ideas, to iterate, to ideate. So it's not just people. The context of conversation, it can be informal, like this event, if you're in line at a conference, or if you're waiting in line for something else, if you're in a group and you're just sort of chatting, or you want to engage someone else in chat, in a conversation. It really, it's all about talking with other entities. Let's say in most cases right now, people. And then formal. You can also use conversations and do use conversations when you're with your team, when you're doing reviews, when you're doing status checks, when you're doing stand-ups, when you're doing check-ins. So conversations can happen, and we're specifically talking about work conversations, but they can be both formal and informal. And one of the things that I sort of developed over the course of my career is like, how do I have meaningful conversations? In general, I'm an introvert. In general, I'm not comfortable talking about things or telling people sort of what I do sort of spontaneously. So over the years, I've developed a way to ask questions. And this is a structure to help you ask questions. And this is a structure that if you learn this today, you can take this with you for the rest of your life. It's something you'll see. It's very easy to remember. It's a process that you can use for both the formal and informal conversations that you'll have for your career. Conversations that will help you identify opportunities, give you options, and help you in being resilient, in doing mid-career corrections, and just keeping up and having a rewarding work life. So here's the classic question. This should be something that just sort of. Should be one of the first things that you ask if you're talking with someone in a work context. What are you working on? That's a great introduction way of talking with someone here. In fact, I was talking with Charlie, and I said that was the first question I asked Charlie. What are you working on? And that sort of gets it going. However, there could be other situations where there's already a conversation going, or you're not sure that that's like the right kind of question. So Here's a process that you might want to adopt, and I call it, it's beyond what you're working on, which is always a good classic starter. But I call it the 6 T's. There's 6 core topics for conversation, and help you memorize them. You know, as an aid to memory, they all begin with the letter T. Strangely enough, here they are. These 6 categories of teams, tools, techniques, targets, tests, and terms. And we'll talk about each one of those in just a minute. So what do I mean by teams? Teams are people with stake in the outcome. They could be consultants. They could be your assistants. They could be your colleagues. They could be people who fund your project. Really, teams that encompasses anybody who is involved with your project in any way. And so that's the category. So you think about, well, if we're asking a question in that category, what could some of those questions look like? Here's a couple of sample teams questions. How did you get connected with your team? What kind of people are you hoping to collaborate? These are just samples. It's up to you to just think about, all right, there's a conversation going on. I want to participate in it. I'm interested in, like, a lot of things are going through my mind. How am I going to sound? How am I going to look? What are people going to think of me? All of that goes through, at least it goes through my head in sort of public speaking and public interaction situations. So I just think about, okay, what's one of the 6 teams? Okay, let's ask a question about teams. So this is just something that, just two of an infinite number of questions you can ask about teams. Tools. These are things that teams use to get results. Couple sample questions there. What do you use to build to make that? What new tools have you been exploring recently? Again, these are samples. You don't memorize this. You'll come up with your own. Techniques. These are ways teams use tools. And how do you typically approach something like this? And where did you pick up that technique? Again, these are all questions, and you're not putting someone on the spot. You're sort of like engaging them in conversations. Again, with the idea that down the road there will be opportunities that you'll find out about, and also perhaps giving you options that will allow you to be resilient and to do pivots when you want to do them. Targets. This is a little bit, the first 3 are pretty self-explanatory. Teams, tools, and techniques. Targets. This may be a bit of a stretch, but what I'm thinking about here is anything like, what are you after? A budget target, a schedule target, a specification, a level of something that is measurable. So that's what I'm thinking about in targets. So for targets, a question could be, what's your budget or schedule? How will you know when you've nailed it? So again, these are all categories of questions that you can ask. Most of these questions that I've put up here are from sort of like the informal kind of question, where I'm at a conference, someone's talking, I hear something that interests me, I sidle up to them and listen for a bit, and then when there's a pause and there's something that there's a pause for me to ask a question, this is something that I might ask. So that's targets. And then tests. These are methods to evaluate techniques and tools. This is just something that there's always there, especially in aerospace, there's always testing and evaluation. So how do you know if it's working? What surprises have you run into during testing? Again, these are just sample questions. These are not the 2 things that you need to memorize. It's the 6 T's that you need to memorize. And you will. I guarantee you that you will have them all memorized by the end of my talk. And terms. This is something that each industry has special words and phrases that they use. One word in my work in the past has been the word convergence. When I was working in stereoscopic imaging, convergence has to do with like how to angle the camera so that the image converges in a way that it's viewable as as a stereoscopic image to a human being. But there's also convergence in like, the divergence of AI and technology and things that Ray Kurzweil talks about. So that's another category you can ask questions about. And that might be, what does whatever term there is actually mean in your work? So again, 6 T's. You can take these with you. These are also, think about this in when you're at work. You can say to a colleague, what are you working on? You can say to a subordinate, what are you working on? You can, if you're having an informal conversation and you don't have your notes with you and someone asks you for an update, if you cover these subjects, especially the first 3, you're well on your way to have something intelligent to talk about and to make sense about what you're talking about. To me, it helps me narrow things down rather than I can talk about anything and it's all exciting and I love it all and I don't know where to go. I can just think of one of these and move forward with one of those. And then questions. So ask me anything. One of the questions that people have asked me in the past when I've done this is how did you come up with this like 6 T's? I was involved in the early days of stereoscopic movies. One of the first projects I worked on, or one of the earliest stereoscopic projects that I worked on, was a concert film with the band U2. It was called U2 3D. And we were really pioneering a lot of the ways of compositing and doing post-production and visual effects on stereoscopic imaging. And so I offered to a Focal Press, which is a major sort of media publisher. I said, hey, I know something about 3D stereoscopic post-production. I'd like to write a book. Would you pay me to do that? And they said, yes, we'll pay you to do that. So instead of sort of coming up with like different categories or different sort of opinions and to help it be understandable to the reader, I came up with those 6 categories. So I said, okay, I'm not going to talk about departments. Like I'm not going to talk about the cinematography department or the audio department or this department or that department. I'm going to talk about these 6 categories. And that's how I structured the book. And do you have any questions? Yes.
I see actor up there. Have you ever acted?
I have acted. Yes. As a kid, I did a lot of theater, and then I've been on the board of a theater, a very well-respected theater in Hollywood for about the last 25 years.
Okay.
And interesting, thank you for raising that. The career pivot for me there was they had no one to do the posters. So I taught myself Photoshop and InDesign and posters, flyers, all of the printed stuff that goes along with the theater. And then I used that skill later to work at Paramount Pictures. So over the years, I was hired by them twice for extended contracts to do key art, which is key art is the art that you see when you're on this, like the streaming services. It's the image that represents the movie. So if you say, Avengers, the key art. If you say the word Chinatown, you know the key art. If you any of the big movies, you can sort of think of what that image is. So I was an expert and still am an expert in key art. And now I'm using that same expertise. A colleague and I are starting an audiobook publishing company, and I'm doing the book covers and the audiobook covers for that based on that. So thanks for the question. And so that's where it came from. Yeah, sure. Anything else?
Did you say you got a book?
Yeah, the book is called 3D Post-Production,
Okay.
and it's on Amazon. And the other thing I wanted to do with that book is I didn't want it to be obsolete, because a lot of the tech was just sort of up and coming and moving, and I wanted the book to sort of have staying power and still be relevant when the tools themselves had changed. So that's another reason that I organized it in that way. Pedro. Good to see you.
You said stereoscopic imaging, but I have no idea what that is. I'm curious, but
Oh yeah, when you go to a 3D movie, there's like it's depending on how the process is done, it's either shot with a dual camera, and with two cameras, or it's shot with a single camera and then digitally like split, so that each eye gets a different image, and it creates that stereo experience in your sort of visual system. So that's what I meant by stereoscopic or 3D. Yeah. Anything else?
So like
Yes.
in a social gathering,
Yeah.
you hear like an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Is there any tips for like work your way into the conversation, especially if like one of the speakers like really on a roll and now you don't see a break coming in to like get in there to the conversation.
Well, I think, I mean, often especially with networking events, of which this is one. To me, it's an ideal place to use any of the 6 T's to sort of think, okay, what this person or what these people are talking about are interesting. There's something that I may be able to contribute, but I want to make sure that, I'm sort of getting into the conversation the right way, as opposed to sort of making a statement, or that didn't work for us, or I had a friend who tried that and they didn't work, or that I had a company who was doing the same thing and that they went under. So it's more like whatever of those T's interests you, you can ask a question about that.
Okay.
Yeah, and in terms of like interrupting or everything in conversation, that's sort of a personal thing. Like when you want to jump in. Yeah.
Thank you.
I can add up on that too. I think that the T framework is great. One thing to keep in mind for me, like I may not be in the same industry as everyone in this room. However, I can still relate to you as a human being. I can find some commonality, whether what you like to do for fun, places you want to travel, favorite restaurants, right? What do you like? So I try to find commonality regardless of what environment I'm in. Because like the testing and like the scheduling stuff, it may not be relevant for me. I may not know the same vernacular as everyone in this room, but there are other things I can find common ground with. So I'll always try to approach it in that sense where I can be in any room. Just want to compliment what you said.
Absolutely. I definitely second what Andy said. And the 6 T's to me are really, they're more for work related or questions. So social related questions, by all means. If someone like is really like great, they love to fish, or they love to scuba dive. Great. I can certainly like talk about that, or just say, hey, did you ever have the experience of diving in the Red Sea? Or did you, what was your favorite diving destination? Yeah, by all means, do that. But for me, and those seem to be easier for me, but the ones that I've always kind of had trouble until recently, and so I started using this on a consistent basis, is those sort of work-related questions. Like, how can I get into sort of a business, a work-related, a project-related kind of conversation and still learn something and contribute something? Anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that. I think you both make good points. Like on one hand, when you're networking, you're meeting new people, you want to kind of meet people on a personal level and, be like, how are you doing? How was your day? But on the other hand, when you are networking, you're trying to, you're trying to tell your skills, you want to kind of shift gears and, deal until people, start talking about those T's, like what we're working on in the business. So I think you're both right to an extent. It just kind of depends on, on the context of the conversation. Because when you're meeting somebody for the first time, you want to kind of, you sometimes want to, meet on like a personal level rather than just kind of shifting into what we're working on, what tools we're working on. But if you're speaking like during a job interview, you want to be speaking more about, like what we're working, the teams and all that stuff. I think it depends.
I think you bring up really good points, but context is everything. You need to read the room. If I'm going into a networking situation where there be executives there, or I want to network into, and I know someone works at a particular company I'm interested in, I'm gonna go in with a strategy, right? I'm gonna drop in nuggets about stuff I've done in the past. I may name drop the school I went to, or like a particular organization I've been part of, to drop the nuggets like, hey, I'm someone that you need to remember, right? Part of your elevator pitch, if you will. You definitely have to have that. But other situations where, hey, I'm not looking for anything in particular. I'm just here to have a good time, make some new friends maybe, with no particular end goal or end purpose in mind for my career. I'm just here trying to connect with people on a human level. And I feel like I learned that in grad school, because in grad school, I was at the USC MBA program. It's a lot of networking situations, and I actually hated it. Absolutely hate it, because so everyone's like sizing each other up. Like, oh, you're not in the industry I'm interested. I'm not going to talk to you, and you can tell right away. So I just was frustrated at these networking events. But then that's why it shifted my mindset. So you know what? I don't really care what industry you're at. I just want to get to know you as a regular person. Do we have commonality? Yes or no? And I took it upon a challenge upon myself to develop the resiliency to thrive in any environment. If I'm talking to a corporate executive, I could talk to them. If I'm talking to like a janitor, I could talk to them. Right? So it's about having the broad skill set, a broad experience, a broad perspective. And then I'm here to add value to other people's lives. That's it.
I'll back that up since we went to school together. He was probably one of the few business people that I've talked to an engineering student.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Dennis and I have known each other for many years, and it took a long time for us to connect the dots. Where he was in this engineering hat, I was in this marketing hat. But quite frankly, there are a lot of commonalities between what he did and what I did. And it took years and years of back and forth conversation. But oh, you do a lot of program management? Wow, I didn't even know what a program manager was. Before I took the PMP in 2022, I could not tell you what a project manager was versus a program manager. No idea. But then as I learned about it, it's like, hey, I've been doing project management all my life. I've been managing marketing campaigns. I've been managing marketing rebrands, new websites, right? That in itself is a project. And now I'm in more of a marketing consultant / program manager role. I have project managers to do the day-to-day stuff, but I'm overseeing the completion of it, make sure it aligns with the enterprise strategy. And when we had these conversations, kind of realized that's kind of what he was doing. All of a sudden, he was in a role we had to sell a program. So you had to develop a marketing campaign. You had to develop all these various strategies there. So through our conversation, we were able to connect the dots that way, like more similar than different.
This is where you leverage your network. So as I was trying to sell a brand new facility that I was building, I asked this guy right here for tips and tricks on how to do it. This is where your network comes into play, right? Where you start to meet people from different skill sets.
And just as an aside, Dennis and I met here, I believe it was maybe even in this room, at another AIAA event. And we got to talking, we realized we had some commonality and some issues. And we're currently in the last stages of writing a book about how to keep teams aligned, how to keep them from drifting apart, using very simple, basic visualization techniques. So it works, we're sort of a living example again of that. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I hope to talk with you later.
Awesome. All right. So the next section we're going to talk about here is executive presence. For some of you, this might be a little bit further down the line than for others, but that's okay because you have plenty of time right now to structure your career so that you can get to this point. All right. So don't just kind of zone out. This is actually meant for you too, because you have plenty of time to go ahead and work on it. So what does the executive presence mean, right? It's essentially leading with confidence and credibility. Your presence is essentially how you walk into a room and how you present yourself. It's what you wear, it's how you carry yourself, it's about how you speak, not just to people you know, but to people you don't know, people that are below you in terms of rank, to executives that are above you. You're going to have to be able to talk to all of these people all the way up and down the line. And why does that matter? In order for you to get to the next level, they have to see you there. They have to imagine that you can be one of them, right? And so if you can walk in and you're comfortable with them and you're able to chat with them, you're able to build a rapport with them, then they can say, oh, you know what? We can work with this person, right? He can be part of us. Number two is because you build that rapport, now you're able to influence. Without that rapport, you don't have any authority to influence. So that's where the rapport comes in, right? If you're able to chat with them, they're more likely to listen to you. And then that also creates kind of an open space for everybody to kind of chit chat versus just talking shop, right? So that's a very important part of this. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me go back. This is very important. Your voice. Speak with clarity, authority, and control. Tone is key. Okay? And what I mean by that, and I tell my kids this all the time. I have a daughter who's a teenager and she's very moody now, right? And so when I ask her, how are you doing today? And I'm going to give you 3 examples. Same words, all different meanings. I'm fine. I'm fine. And I'm fine. Same words, all 3 different meanings, right? So your tone right here when you're speaking makes a big difference as part of your persona when you walk in, right? You don't go in all dressed to the nines, you're confident and you're, I'm okay, how's your, it doesn't match, right? So everything, every piece of you comes into this executive presence. So how do you influence? As I said earlier, the influence is going to be a big thing right now for people who are trying to make it to the next level because you don't have the authority, right? Where they already know that what you say they have to do. So all you've got is that influence, right? So you're going to have to be able to influence them without the authority, right? And so what does that mean? Like we talked about before, dress with intention. Read the room. If most of your executives dress in suits and ties, and if you've got a meeting with them, that's probably what you should dress, right? If you want them to see you as one of them, okay? Don't walk in there with jeans and t-shirt because they're going to think you're a technician or something like that, right? Dress with intention. Entrance is an impact, okay? How you carry yourself when you walk in. When you walk in with purpose, right? Don't walk in kind of hunched and quickly scurry all the way to the back. Right? Walking with intention, meet people, mingle, see how they do it, try to mimic, okay? And this one's very important too, eyes that lead. When you talk with people, eye contact, right? Always have eye contact with them when you're chatting with people. So when you're talking with them, don't look down, don't look up, don't look away, talk directly at them. At that level, that's what they're expecting, okay? If you're talking between technicians to technicians or somebody else, they're going to be working, they're like, okay, just chat with me, and that's fine, right? But at an executive level, it's a people skill. So it's people to people, person to person. Eye contact is how you build that silent rapport as well, okay? When you talk to people, all right? Now let's talk about the ABCs. Anybody have heard about the ABCs in terms of the candidates, A candidate, B candidate, and C candidate? So everybody's going to want this A candidate if you want to become that executive. This is going to be somebody who's motivated. They challenge. They're challenged and thrive under pressure. Again, does not mean that you burn out yourself doing it, but you're okay accepting this challenge. You're confident. You're able to express, I don't know. Okay. I've been in Northrop Grumman for 20 years, and I've been up to the 11th floor of that darn building with all the executives where no one ever wants to be. There's only two outcomes that you come out of that building. Either you come out there smiling or you leave your badge at the table on your way out. Okay? But in those meetings, if I'm overrunning a budget, it's okay to say, I don't know. But you have to follow it up with, but I'll get you that answer, and confidently say it, right? I'll get you an answer within a couple of hours or within the next day, along with a plan to how to solve our issue, right? That's completely acceptable. You're not supposed to know every single answer. They don't, which is why you're there to tell them what's going on, okay? And your vision. Got to be a strategic thinker, not just task oriented. I'm done with this task. What's my next one, boss? Okay. You're going to have to look at, what does my task affect? There's a tree to your task. Everything affects something else. Somebody up top told somebody else, told somebody else, told somebody else. Everything is all connected, right? And what you're doing. I'll give you an example. One of my last projects before I retired from Northrop was I was building this brand new facility, and we were using corporate profits to do it. So it makes it very, very important to our executives that, you manage the money, because we're not billing any customer for it. So when you're sitting there and I'm like, okay, we're designing this place. Who does it affect? It affects these programs. Okay. Those programs, who are our customers? This government, that project, so on and so forth. What's their involvement in this, and how important is it to their overall thinking? And so we have to design our marketing strategy, our message, to encompass each one of their priorities. Okay. So that's that strategic thinking, that you have to think bigger. The B candidate, what's your motivation? I want the credit. I want the applause. Somebody pat me on the back, right? Calculate it, but you know your stuff, right? They're there to get that, they're here to get that promotion. The next step, what's my next promotion? Okay, that's kind of the B candidates. It's your C candidates. I'm comfortable, don't bother me, I'm good with where I'm at, right? I'm not looking to get in trouble or do anything wrong. I'm good. I just want to do my job and go home. There's a role for every single one of these, and they're not all bad, right? One organization cannot all be superstars, so there's a role for everybody. But if you want to be that executive, you've got to be here, okay? But you've also got to realize who you are and fix that. You cannot think you're this when you're down here. Okay? So there's a little self-introspection in terms of who you think you are. High visibility moments. So this is the one that really, really just freaks a lot of people out. Why? Because this is the make or break. This is the, am I going to fall flat and the entire company knows it? Or am I going to succeed and the entire company knows it? Do you have the gumption to be able to go in and say, I'll take that job, right? And I'll do it. So this is where it's tested, the boardroom presence. Like I told you before, I've been up there. You're $15 million over budget. What are you going to do? This is a true story. $15 million over budget. What are you going to do? I pulled out an email, said, hey, look, I recovered 50% of it, $7 million of it. I'll work on the other 7. That was more than enough for them. They're like, great, we got back 50%, work on the rest. And I walk out of there with my badge still in hand, okay? Presenting to senior leadership, know what they want. A lot of the times when people go in and they present things, they start to ramble, details, too much information, technical details, operational details, who did this, who did that. All they want to know is what's the problem, how much is it that it cost me, how you're going to fix it, and how long it's going to take. You need those 4 things, right? If they want any more, they'll ask you. Okay? There's a reason why you only want to present 4, because with executives and at that level, you don't want to say too much, because a lot of the times they'll latch onto what you say and it'll derail the meeting, right? And then you're stuck trying to bring them back, and you can't because you don't have the authority, right? And so you spend all your influence and all your energy trying to bring them back. So you kind of want to narrate the story for them with what they want to see and the structure that they want to see it in. Crisis communication is part of the media and external presence as well. I don't know if a lot of people get to do crisis communication. That's probably a lot more on the marketing side where Andy has to do a lot of it. But this is where, when you work your way up into, at least on the engineering side, there's crises every single day. So I was in integration and test. So every single day, every single hour was a crisis, right? Everything was problems. Even before programs started was a problem. So on James Webb in 2008 or something like that, on a Saturday, the high bay, which there was nothing in it yet, the fire hydrant blew up inside the high bay. So blew up a 23-foot section of the floor. Water just pouring out by thousands of gallons out of the high bay. I walked by for lunch. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's not good. Well, guess what? Crisis management. What happened to our high bay? Right? You have to be able to handle those kind of situations. And leading change and uncertainty. Like I was telling you, when I built this new facility, it was for 3 brand new projects, but it was also for the future of how Northrop Grumman operates in terms of the business. Uncertainty whether or not it's going to be used, uncertain whether or not it's going to be continually funded year over year. But you lead the charge. You have to go. So what do? We talk to every group. We talk to every organization. We talk to program managers. We talk to executives. We talk to customers. We talk to just about everybody up and down the line to try to get their buy-in, to all get their support from each one, right? The functional executives up here say, you know what? I don't want to pay it. But if I have 3 programs here that are contributing billions of dollars into the company, but their customer wants it and they put it in their bid, well, guess what? It forces their hand. They're going to do it. Just make sure you don't tell them you're the one that forced their hand. Okay. They may not like that. But there are different ways to kind of get things done, right? In terms of your influence. And that's part of the influencing without authority. When you're talking about vice presidents and you're a director or just a general, you have no authority whatsoever. What they say goes. So like I said before, all you have left is your influence in the world. Okay. Absolutely critical. Stakeholder awareness, political savvy, building trust quickly. So let's take these top 3. You have to know where you stand. Okay. You have to know what you're responsible for and whether or not it's something big enough for them to even listen to you. Okay. So let's go back to the example. They gave me $164 million of company profit to build this. Not a small number. So I understood where I stand, right? Succeed, great. Fail, I'm out the door. But as long as you want to take it, this is where the political savvy starts to come in. You start to look at who all your stakeholders are, and you start working them. You start working with them. Build that rapport with them. What do you want? How important is your area that can influence another area? So this is where the programs can influence the corporate functional side. If the corporate side doesn't want to fund it, well, guess what? These guys are putting billions of dollars into your company, and it's in their proposal. So if you lie to them on a proposal, these guys will have to sit in front of Congress and explain why you lied. So that means they're not going to do that, so they're going to fund you. So you got to understand how everybody kind of fits in this. I'll give you another example as well. When we do proposals to the government, I don't know if anybody here has done proposals, but depending on which organization, whether it's the Air Force or the Space Force or whoever, we have complete workups of every general, every director, every person that will be making a decision on whether or not you get this program. We know their likes, we know their dislikes, we know what they've done before, so on and so forth. We have a complete profile makeup of every single person that will make a decision on yay or nay on this program for Northrop Grumman. Okay, and that's one of the reasons that I say you should mentally do the same when you're working these kind of programs. You walk into a board meeting, you have 12 executives, each one is going to have their own priorities. Okay, I'll give you another story on that too. So when I left, they decided to go a different route, right? I was 90% done, there's remaining 10%. And my protege that I left there, he asked me, should I go to the board meeting on the 11th floor? I told him, absolutely not. Do not go to that meeting, right? Because you're not ready for that, and they're going to hang you at the dry. Generally, they just send me, right? Because they know I'll handle it. So what happened? Everybody was infighting because they incurred additional cost that they weren't supposed to. So everybody, all the executives were kind of talking to each other, well, this, and that. So what happened? One executive said, well, I decided to change this because I wanted to buy down risk for my program. And I said, wow, that's a bad move, right? And so what happened? The CFO yelled at him and told him, look, I pay you to manage risk, not to give me additional risk, right? So what he did was he managed his risk, but he gave the problem to his boss. Let that one sink in for a second. Wrong answer, right? And so what happened? His boss essentially told him, do your job. That's what I pay you for. Everybody in that room has different competing priorities. You have to know what they are so that you know how to speak to them, okay? You don't want to answer one question by poking another executive in the eye with your answer. So be very, very careful how you answer your questions, okay? And so that's part of the political savvy and building trust. When they know what the answer is going to be, but you don't sell them out, you build automatic trust with them, okay? That's how you work it. That's also part of the navigating the power dynamics, right? At that executive level, there's going to be people at the VP, senior VPs, regular VPs, junior VPs, and then the CFO and all that kind of stuff, and directors and so on and so forth. All right. You have to know who is who and who holds the power at that meeting and what they want in terms of importance. Okay. And your executive presence is upward communication. Okay. How do you manage yourself upward? I'll give you another story too. So every time I go up there every month to give my status on the 11th floor, I always try to choose a different seat because everybody told me the CFO always sits in the front of the table. So I was like, oh, great. I'm not going to sit at the front of the table. I'm going to sit on the side of the table, but maybe a little bit further up. And for some reason, the CFO always sits to my left and another senior director to my right. No matter where I sit, they always sit there. I'm like, you guys doing this on purpose because I'm the one presenting information? I have no idea. But regardless of that, you have to manage it. You have to chit chat with him, the CFO, because I know this director is scared of him, and I don't quite like this director. So I got to be nice with him because you can't show, tension with the CFO to your left. So you're going to have to manage all that upward communication going up. Okay? Oops. This thing really is sensitive. So what's your mindset when you go into this? This is probably the single most important thing is your mindset. This is what separates a regular manager to a person who's destined to become an executive. Okay. Think beyond your function. I'm here to do a task. I did it. Okay. How does it affect anybody else? I don't know. Okay. Still learning. Not quite there yet. Connect the decisions Speak in outcomes, not tasks. That's important. What did I do? These are the things I did. The executives don't care, right? What happened? Everything worked, nothing broken. We delivered on time. Fantastic. That's all they want to hear. We're on budget, on schedule. Awesome. No, but I put this connector into it. Okay, I got it. I got it. Put that on the backup slides. Right? They don't want to hear it. This is where you have to be strategic in terms of what you want to say. Demonstrate this ownership. Right? You own it. You own it. You own it. When I walk into that boardroom every single time, I know I own it. And I know, again, I walk out of there with my badge or without my badge. But you have to own it regardless. Okay? And know when to go deep and stay high level. That's part of the conversation. They want high level, but some of the executives like to dig deep. So be able to talk to it too as well. If you don't, again, you don't need to. That's okay. I'll get you the answer. Completely acceptable. But be confident about it when you say it. Okay. And one more thing I want to leave you with here is the strategic thinking model. Okay. They only care about outputs because they're at a different level. The level you're at, you're looking at the inputs and the practices here. Okay. You're looking at, oh, well, my directors and my managers, they're the ones reporting. So they care about the outputs. But if they can't see you doing those output reports, you won't get there. Right? You have to be able to get there, be able to do it. If you're the backup to your boss or to an executive, you're halfway there. Okay? You're halfway there. I'll give you another example. I was in a meeting with a senior director in his office. He pulled me in. He goes, come on in. I got a meeting. I'm like, great. Didn't want to walk by this office. So pulled me in. And we have two VPs on the line. One VP was in our facility. Another VP was from another facility that we're looking to close down. And so then they start arguing because they're at the same level. So they start arguing on the phone. And so my director, he puts it on mute. He goes, ooh, this is beyond our level. I go, yeah, thank goodness. Then our VP goes, hey, can you send somebody over there and do an analysis of their facility to see what's there and what's not can be closed down? So he looks at me, he whispers, I'm sorry. He goes, yes, I do. He's here right now with me. I'm like, great, thank you very much. So I get sent over there. So first thing I talk to those guys, look, we're here for a reason. Don't kill the messenger. Okay. We all have a job to do. Let's just get it done and then just kind of move on. And why was that for? That was because their boss, the VP's bosses, wanted that facility closed. So we're all kind of stuck. We just have to do what we need to. But you do it in a professional manner. Okay. Don't say no. Don't send somebody else. You have to do it. Okay. So with all of this, remember how you carry yourself, how you walk in, how you speak, your tone of voice. Are you able to make a connection that you can talk to a person? Are you able to chat with them on the level that they're at? Right? And are you able to think like that? And let's just break it down to make it really easy. When you're at school or wherever, and you're meeting at a social level, and you're talking to people, do you make a connection? Why? Because you have similar ideas, you have similar interests, you guys talk the same. You're not talking to a 2-year-old and you're not talking to a 65-year-old, right? It's as simple as that. Can you talk to those people? And if you can apply the same thing from an executive presence mindset, right? And when you have all of that together, that's the executive presence. It's not that difficult, right? You just have to change the way you think. And I do want to bring up like what Andy was saying from an imposter syndrome perspective. This right here is probably the biggest thing from an imposter syndrome perspective. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this before. I've never been an executive. Well, guess what? Neither have them. Neither have they when they started. Okay. They started from somewhere and so will you. So keep that in mind when you talk with them. Sit at the table. It's okay. They don't bite generally, but if they do, you handle yourself professionally and you'll be good. Right? Okay. I'm gonna have to fix this. Yeah, this is really sensitive. Okay, so we went through all that. We're gonna do a quick lunch break. Lunch is ready, Ken? Correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go into Andy's section of personal branding, and then I'll finish it off with financial future and your career security in an afternoon. And then hopefully everybody will have a lot of questions. We'll have a quick little panel, and everybody can ask whatever you want. All right.
I just want to add on what Dennis said. A lot of times, having the mindset is important. Yes, right. When you tell people, "Oh, just be confident," just be confident in yourself. Easier said than done. Okay, because part of the imposter syndrome is if you're not experienced enough, if you don't have the confidence in yourself, maybe you're insecure about something about your background, then it can be very challenging. All I can say to that is just practice. At the end of the day, the more practice you have, the more comfortable you'll be. A lot of it's trial and error, quite frankly. Trial and error and what works, what doesn't work. A personal anecdote. When I was single, okay, I was in the bar scene. You try to talk to women, right? You try to build a rapport with people. That took a lot of practice, right? You get shot down a lot. But the beauty of it, you build a resiliency there, right? So the better I did in the social scene, the bar scene, the club scene, the better I applied it to my work situation. The better I applied it in the work situation, the better I did in the social setting, right? So at the end of the day, it's all about practicing, and that's where you build that resiliency, and you can own your mindset.
And I'd like to add to that too is that when you talk to these executives in a professional setting, whether it's at work or whatnot, you have to think of them as a person, not their title. Okay. Andy could have been hitting on a CEO. He didn't know. It was just a personal kind of social environment. That's how you need to do it when you talk in a professional setting. They're just a person. They have an answer. They need answers because they need a report up to. So make their life easy. Right. That's it. All right. Break for lunch. Fantastic. And then I'll leave that up there in case anybody wants to see what's next. So I think there's sandwiches, drinks over there. Help yourselves. I know a lot of people are very interested in financial future and career security. Just to let you know, I did retire 5.5 years ago in Northrop. So I'm just kind of bouncing around and doing my own thing. Let's talk a little bit about that, how I got there. The number one thing is, like I said in a keynote, is define what your vision is. What does it look like? Right? When you want to leave at whatever age, what does that look like? Do I want to travel? Do I just want to teach? What is it? Define what that financial vision is early, right? Am I going to live off of what I've got? Am I going to live off my pension? Am I going to live off what? Define what your goal is. That way, for those who are younger, you have a long runway to plan, okay? Those with a shorter runway, going to have to pick up the steam a little bit. Strategic career moves and versus emotional decisions, okay? So we've all had that day where I'm done with this place, okay? I'm just done. I'm just going to walk out the door and just forget about it. Be very strategic. Think about it, okay? That does not mean you stick at a job that you don't like. Think calm, Just do the job while you're looking for a second one. I've known so many people who just, and family members included in my family, where they just left their job and they just putz around for like 9 months looking for another job, right? I'm like, wow, you're brave. You got a family and stuff. But, what happens there is that you start to set yourself back, right? Then they'll start asking, well, what have you done in 9 months? And so you have to do a lot more explaining, right? Save yourself that trouble. Be very strategic in terms of your career moves. It's okay to go down if that means that your next jump is higher, right? But be strategic. Don't let that emotion drive you, because that emotion will either bring down your financials later on or your schedule on terms of when you can leave. Okay. And the role of timing in life stage. Like I said before, align your career intensity to where you're at. If you're younger, you just graduated, I'm ready to go. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? When I was younger and I was at the launch site, right, I was doing 8 hours of sleep on 3 days, right? Because we're just 24/7 at the launch site. Nowadays, you probably see me sleeping on the car 10 hours a day, right? But that's the whole point. Align where you're at and what you're willing to do. Just don't burn yourself out, okay? Plan your time off. Plan your relocations. Plan where you plan to go a year from now, 2 years from now. That's not to say that it doesn't change, but just kind of have an idea of where you want. And eventually you'll start making subconscious decisions to eventually get you there. Okay. And this one is extremely important. Everybody heard of the golden handcuffs? No. Okay. This is where your company has locked you up for life. Okay. I'll give you a story, and maybe this will explain what that meant. I remember one time a senior director saw me in the hallway and he goes, "Hey, you gonna buy a new car, house, have another kid?" It made me think about that statement for a second. And then I realized what he was trying to do. He wanted to lock me in that I needed that salary so I can never leave. That's your golden handcuffs. They pay you enough that you don't want to leave, and you've got so many bills and stuff that you can't leave. So you're stuck with the golden handcuffs. So now I said, tell him, nope, not a chance, because I know he doesn't do it either. So not a chance. So be careful on this golden handcuffs. You make just enough that you're happy, you make more than the average person, but not enough to really just jump and leave. And that's why the people at work, and I never understood this in my early years, but I used to have a lot of senior managers and technicians used to tell me, I'm just one bad day away. From what? They're like, quitting. I'm like, really? One bad. Why? Because they don't have that golden handcuffs. They've invested, they're ready, they live below their means, So one bad day away, they walk away. Right. So I understood that at 5.5 years ago when I walked away. Right? That was one bad day away. And you know what? I'm okay. It's time to walk away. Right? So be very careful with this golden handcuffs. Okay? Don't let that lifestyle creep go up with your salary. And remember, the most important thing that you can have is your personal freedom and freedom of choice, career choice of what you want to do. Okay? I know a lot of people at Northrop right now, they cannot leave even though they want to leave badly. Why? Because they've over leveraged themselves. Okay.
What do you mean by over leveraging yourself?
So they just bought a house. They have rental property they're still paying on. They just had a kid. And they didn't just buy a house in Orange County. They bought a house in Manhattan Beach, 2 blocks from the beach. So they seriously over leveraged themselves. Things like that. So how do we plan for retirement while we're still growing in your career? Like I said before, start with that end in mind. What does it look like for you? Say at 40, you want to leave. What does 40 look like? Does that mean I'm never going to do anything? Or do I want to do a transition to a different industry? Or I want to teach? Or I want to whatever? Again, doesn't have to be set in stone, but just have an idea. That way, you can reverse engineer from that point backwards what you need to do. Okay. For those who are in engineering, we have on our schedule what we call monuments. And those monuments are set for a reason. They don't move, or they cannot move, or should not move, because there's a lot of ramifications. One of those being the launch date of the rocket. So from that point on, we work our schedule backwards. We don't start from the beginning and work forward. That's our monument. It doesn't move. We work backwards. And that's what you need to do here. I want to leave at 45. I'm this age. From that, work backwards. Figure out what you need to do. Okay. Grow your career capital, not just the titles. Okay. Don't take a job because it says it's director, but guess what? No pay, no other incentives. But you get the title. Not necessarily the best thing. Trust me, I've done it. Okay, that was me. So the focus on the roles and the skills that could also increase your marketability later on, right? So not only internally, like Andy was saying, being project management and AI and all that, you can do that internally, but those skills can also be used externally as well. So build it up, use somebody else's expense. If they're willing to pay for the course, they're willing to teach you, do it, take it, right? Even though it might be more work for you then, but look at the end game. It's going to help me a little bit further down the line. Okay? Learn that leadership and industry-specific expertise. If I did not learn being a technical person, being a manager, being in executive levels, if I didn't learn any of that, I wouldn't be here right now doing these kind of things. I wouldn't have the opportunities that I have to work with startups and all these other companies because they don't see you as an expert. So again, leverage that experience that you can get early so that you can utilize it later on. Build your internal and external networks. I can't stress this one enough. And I know Andy has told me this many times before, but when you're just kind of inside the company, you're just like, I don't want to bother with it. And so you don't do it. Okay. Tell you a quick story. 5.5 years ago when I left, I never really built my external network. And actually Ken knows this, right? I spent 3.5 years post-COVID building up this external network when I could have done it inside at Northrop Grumman. Okay. And what does that do for you? I'll give you another story. I was at USC. It was a career mock interview day. And so I sat there at the table. Each one had a table and students can come in and they can choose who they want to talk to. And I put my company name down, my consulting company, no branding, no name recognition, no nothing. So I sat there by myself, like the kid who didn't get picked for dodgeball. Well, everybody else had students, right? And right next to me were like 3 or 4 Northrop Grumman people, and they looked like they had like 4 or 5 years experience in HR, and they were telling students on how to get hired and what engineers are looking for. I'm like, well, I've hired 200 of them. Okay, no one wants to talk to me, right? Use their name brand to your advantage. Build that network internally. So what I do now, I just put Northrop Grumman retired, which is legal because it's true, right? So that's how you can kind of utilize some of that. Don't do like I did, which is go the hard route, okay? Build that network internally that you can. And then that you can use to build your network externally, right? And so I did an event at a high school in Manhattan Beach. And actually that's how Ken saw what I was doing. I had my interns showing off the augmented and virtual reality systems that I had them develop. And Ken chased me for almost 3 years, but I wasn't allowed because Northrop said no, right? I wasn't allowed to show what we were developing to anybody else because I had to get approval. And so I kept turning down Ken, right? Until I left. So now I'm building out my network with him, right? So again, if you're able to, try to build those networks.
So a question for you. How do you build your network if you're not on LinkedIn? Like what would you have done differently? Cause you said you don't use social media, so how would you have built your network? And how would somebody build their network if they don't?
So there's multiple ways I would do it. One part is what Andy was saying is there are things that you can put in there in terms of your personal brand. Like I do volunteering work, I do this and so on and so forth. You can absolutely put that in your social media. In terms of your work, you can be generic about it. And the people who look at it, who are in the industry, they understand, right? If you put exactly, oh, I'm working on this and we're launching on this date, they're like, they're going to report you to security, right? So it's okay. I work at Northrop Grumman. I work on space. Fantastic, right? I worked on.
You should have done before you left.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. Not only that, but meeting people, like meeting Ken or anybody else or other organizations that's able to expand your network of people that you could potentially meet. I absolutely, should have done that when I was there. Now, the only reason I never responded to Ken was because I thought, I just needed to show off some of this AR VR stuff. But no, what I should have done is I should have said yes. I should have become a member and just attend these meetings, but not necessarily present anything, right? And so that's how you would start to get your name out there and start meeting people. So you don't necessarily have to divulge anything. Just be part of the group first until you're able to do something, right? And so that's what I wish I would have done earlier on, right? Like I said, I spent another 3.5 years afterwards.
One thing I wanted to add to that, if I may, is that there's a term called clout, where if you meet someone for the first time and you look up their LinkedIn profile or social media profile, one of the first things you look at is, does this person come from a reputable background? Does he have like name brand on his resume? Does he have a lot of connections? If they're coming from no-name companies, in that, I think that the networking event scenario is spot on, right? If someone doesn't recognize your company or university that you graduate from, then they may not give you a second look. If they look at the number of followers you have and say, oh, okay, this guy only has like maybe 20 connections, I'm going to question whether this guy's legitimate or not. If I have versus someone that has like thousands and thousands of connections, has like testimonials on their LinkedIn profile, so all of a sudden this guy's more legit. All of a sudden, I'm going to give this guy extra credence that he is who he says he is, right? Because everyone is skeptical these days, right? People, you meet some random person on the subway or the metro link. I'm not going to give this person time of day per se, but if I connect with this person and I found out, oh, we have mutual connections, this person, like if I connect with someone and say, oh, Dennis is a mutual connection, all of a sudden that's like a warm connection there. So that's where clout comes into play. So I think Dennis, you're spot on, where the term I think of is called digging your well before you're thirsty, right? Digging your well, where you don't want to network and go to networking events hungry, like, oh, I need a job. That's why you want to build those connections before you need the opportunity. You want to build this connection where you're adding value to other people's lives before you need anything, right?
Leverage those connections you have before they go away. All right, so that's
Can I add something?
Yeah.
So when I left my old company, aerospace, I was really skeptical of social media. So if I heard what you said, I would be like, no, I don't want to be associated with people that have 500 followers. So I think there's another side of that too. I think it's kind of subjective on some people may look better upon somebody that doesn't have a social media. I'm not giving an opinion one way or the other. At this point, I have a social media with 500 followers, so I've kind of reversed my thinking. But some people may, I think it just depends on the person, because some people may look better upon somebody that doesn't have social media. Maybe they would, if they don't have social media and they have like maybe a blog or something, no followers, I don't know, I just.
I think it's
it
maybe
depends.
you look at it from a different perspective. How would you leverage, say, LinkedIn? How would you leverage your presence on LinkedIn to somebody who doesn't know you, who's never met you, or won't have the opportunity to meet you in person, right? For a potential recruiter or a potential person that might have need of your skills. How would you market yourself to those people?
If you do
Right.
use LinkedIn,
Correct.
yeah,
Right. And so that's what that is used for,
yeah.
right? It's like Andy was saying, he never would have found this if he didn't have that opportunity to put his profile up there and the things that he did, because he's never met this recruiter in person before, nor would he ever have probably had the opportunity to have this person in person, right? And so this is where, if you look at it differently and say, okay, they know nothing about me, I will never be able to meet them, you know, because there'd be no circumstances where I might be at an event where I would meet them. So the only other way is social media or some version of it, right? That's how you should position yourself in your
Yeah.
profile.
So I was just responding to his comment about how he said, like, if he met somebody on a subway and he didn't know anything about them,
Yes.
that the social media would provide clout for that person. But
It's legitimacy.
it may not for some, it may provide clout for you, but for some people, it may not provide clout.
Also, yes. Also think of it this way. Your social media is like the cover page of your resume. It's
Yeah.
kind of an overview of what you do. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, so. Yeah, I agree with that.
It depends on your strategy. My strategy has always been, I want to be found. Okay, I want to be found. I want HR, recruiters, hiring managers because that's what they do all day, every day. They type in my world, I'm looking to fill this marketing executive role. So they're going to type in VP marketing bank, VP marketing credit union, VP marketing whatever, or chief marketing officer, marketing project management AI, right? Those are key words. And guess what? I want them to find me when they run the search. I want to be at the top of the rankings, if you will. In order to quote unquote game the system, you need to build a wide network, right? So I purposely target HR people to connect with. I have no idea who they are. I don't really care who they are, but I want to leverage the algorithm, right? Because guess what? HR people know other HR people, and know other HR people, and know other HR people. If I can somehow tap into that network, I increase the odds of being found.
As an example, the lady who stuck her head in about an hour or two ago, which I was chatting to, she's a USC professor. We were chatting. She was like, "Oh, her father used to work in the aerospace industry, and she saw AIAA." And so we were chatting. She goes, "Oh, you're from Northrop." I go, "Yeah. Do you know this executive who retired?" I go, "Yeah, I know who she is." "Oh, yeah, she's at USC." And so we ended up chatting. You never know who you meet and when, right? And so this is the part of where Andy was saying, you know, just network to network, because everybody's connected somehow, some way. Okay. So plan for your exit strategy. Understand how long you need to work, right? At a minimum. So again, that's part of the working backwards. And then potentially position yourself in a role where you could step out maybe part-time. You can come back in part-time. I've actually hired an engineer who came back part-time because he was the only one that knew how to do it, right? And I had him on part-time for like 7 years, and he actually retired. So I brought him back for half-time. And the only reason he came back was because he and I got along very well. If not, he would have said, forget it, right? So that's part of when you build that rapport with people, they're willing to work with you. And then this one is very important, mental preparation and redefine your transition. It's not an end. Look where I am, right? A lot of people always say, "Oh, you left, you retired, why aren't you playing golf or something like that?" I go, "Well, I still like this industry, so I still do things like that." It's not an end. It's an opportunity for you to do whatever you want to do on your own time. That's what it is. It's that flexibility and freedom.
Can I
Yes.
just add to you? I think what Dennis said here is very, very important, the planning. Actually, we have engineer used to work at Northrop Grumman, advanced aircraft, spacecraft concept. And after retire, as he did this preparation, then he was able to move on to Hollywood. They become consulting, to the Hollywood. They make a sci-fi film. We have another engineer, and she worked in the locally, and she worked on that, and she retired, but now she's working with LA-28.
Right.
So they actually, as Dennis said, planning.
Well, another example here, meeting Rick. Who knew I would partner with somebody in the entertainment world? But who knew, right? To do something. You just never know, just based on your network. Thank you.
One thing I want to add to is it's not an overnight thing.
Yes.
Where I posted 9 years ago. That was the day that things turned around, right? Had I kept the same mindset of like, oh, I'm more introvert, I don't want to brag, I would not be where I am today, right? So you need to plant the seeds years ago. And in this case, today, I would encourage you to start posting. I think today is a great kickoff if you want to post about AIAA. Mention, glad to have attended this AIAA event. I really resonated with XYZ, et cetera, et cetera. This is a good opportunity for you to start promoting. Today can be the day for you to get it started.
Excellent. And that kind of rolls into leaving a lasting professional impact. Everything that you see here is essentially things that you're going to put inside your social media or what you want to communicate to people who don't know who you are. So they could potentially open up new opportunities, right? Number one, lead with purpose, not just position. Authority can be given. I can give you the authority to do something, but the influence is not. That doesn't mean that they're going to go do it without question. They can make it painful for you, or they can make it easy, right? For example, for those who have children, and for those who don't, you can think about it. When they're little, authority and influence. Yes, so go do whatever you want. As they get older into teenage years, yeah, you may have authority, but I don't want to do it, right? They're starting to lose your influence on them, right? And so this is where you either can make it easy or you can make it hard on yourself, okay? Definitely lead by example. I never ask my people to do something unless I'm willing to do it. I've asked them to come in before on a weekend. Even though I don't have much of that work to do, I'm there with them. Maybe not the whole time, but I show that I came in at least a couple of hours with them, right, on a weekend. And mentor that next generation, okay? I want to talk a little bit about that next, but build a system, not just solutions. When you work on a task, build a system of how to solve it, right? It could actually be a good thing for you. You keep that system to yourself, they might have to bring you back because they don't know how to do it, right? Or if you're okay with it, you give them that system and then they can move on and then they'll remember you for it. Remember, but build that system, okay? Not just solving the task. Oops. Oops. Wrong button. Oh, darn. Okay. And be known for something distinct. Be known for something, whether it's the technical person, you're a great manager, you're the best technician, or the nicest person there that's always willing to help out, whatever it is, be known for something. So that makes you memorable, right? So that makes them remember you without you having to forcibly make them remember you, right? The whole point is make that job easier for you. Let your actions speak for itself, right? Let your professional brand stand for something clear and consistent. So as Andy was going through, he was very consistent in terms of who he is, what industry he works at, what he likes to do, right? If he put a picture of him swimming and then a vacation and then a little bit about work, who knows, right? He's just throwing stuff up there. There's no consistent, image of who he is. So be consistent of who you are. drive change when it's uncomfortable. Okay. This is how you become known for something. This is very difficult for a lot of people. And I'm going to admit that this is very, very difficult for people. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. But this is extremely difficult. And as Rick has said before, when you pivot different careers, it's difficult. It's unknown territory. But if you're able to talk and you're willing to listen, you're willing to learn, it makes it easier. But you have to challenge this status quo, right? For example, when I was building this new facility or new programs or way of doing things, you have to challenge the status quo. You have to convince them it's the right thing to do. I'll give you another example too. I remember one time the government was going to lock all the doors at Northrop Grumman. I think it was like 2009, because everybody, they found some procedures where people were just rubber stamping, right? Even though they didn't do the work or they didn't witness the work. And so the government threatened to shut us all down. And so I got put on a task to develop a software system that prevents that. It's linked to the certification and training databases, right? So everybody logs in, and so we try to make it as seamless as possible. Uncomfortable. I'm a mechanical guy, and I'm leading a software team. Go figure, right? New territory for me. But the reason they sent me is because I knew what we were doing. I knew how to manage a team. I just brought in software people to be able to code it. So it's all right. Every single week, sit in front of a table with 4 executives on how we're doing, yay or nay. Okay, very, very uncomfortable, because then they have to go explain to the government, yay or nay, and we have to sell it. So when you do that, which we finished, my team was known as the one who's able to get anything done. Okay, and so that's why now they just go pick who you are. It's like, oh, well, yeah, they can do it, or they'll figure it out and go. You don't have to convince them on anything. You're starting to make your brand, if that's your brand, right? Not everybody wants to be the problem solver, and I don't recommend everybody be the problem solver. Measure impact by the people, not just the projects. This is where the A, B, and C comes in. Are you mentoring your people, or are you just using them to get your promotion? Right? There's a big difference. Did you develop the people who work with you, or did you use them to get your promotion? Okay, that's going to be part of your legacy. Right? I'll talk about that in the next slide. But that legacy turns into either short-term or long-term relationships in the future. Okay. Depends on what you're looking for and what you want to do. Okay. If you still want to work, but maybe in another industry or same industry, but maybe in a different part of it, meaning you don't want to work in a corporate, you just want to do your own consulting, you're going to need some of these common networks. Okay. So be very cognizant of these ideas right here. That rolls into mentorship and passing down your knowledge. I've had the opportunity to mentor a lot of engineers throughout my 20 plus years at Northrop. And I have to say, this is probably one of the hardest things to do. It wasn't the job at all. It was trying to figure out what the junior people want to learn. Where do they want to go? How do I get them the skills to move on? I'll give you a story on this one. Is I had a brand new engineer. She came straight from San Luis Obispo, and she got put on my project. And she was my first engineer, and started around December. So my boss went on vacation. I told her, well, I'm going on vacation too. Says, if you don't mind, can you go present to the executive on the program on how well we're doing? She goes, what? We've been here a week. So now tossed her in and says, don't worry, you do a good job. But what I didn't tell her is that I told the executive on the program, she's new, just ask the question, she'll give you status. If she doesn't know, go easy on her. I'll come back and answer it for you, right? But I didn't tell her. I kind of threw her in, right, to go figure it out. Wasn't happy when she came back, but she understands. Now, within 6 years, she's had 2 vice presidents as mentors. All the directors know her. She got a job over at Blue Origin because she was leading an event at one of the space conferences who, she was never given the opportunity. Why? Because she knows how to work with executives now, right? And so when you bring those people up with you, now they still remember you. So it's been 5.5 years since I left, and she still texts me. We still chat every once in a while. And when she comes back down, we have lunch. But this is where you pass your knowledge through mentorship. Okay? This is also part of your brand. Is the people who have worked for you over the years, when they go off to other places, it's almost like it's a product that you developed with your name on it. So if they're not very good, who trained you? Oh man, better not be your name, right? Because now it's stuck to you. I've had years back, I've had people come up to my office, managers, and they go, look, how do you get these engineers so well? Like they're great that come out of your team. So everybody keeps trying to poach from my team. And they're like, well, what's the secret, right? What's the process? I go, there's no process. Just teach them everything. Teach them like they're human beings. Don't just throw a book at them and walk away. Right? Teach them, show them, expand beyond their knowledge, right? I bring them into junior engineers. I brought them into proposals. I brought them into high-level executive meetings with me, so on and so forth. Sit there. You don't have to say anything, but just watch the dynamic. See how things are going. See who's talking to who, what's going on. And so then they start to get comfortable in that environment because they've been there before. So when they have to go talk to them, they're okay with it, right? Or sometimes when I'm up there presenting, I'll ask a question and I'll point to them to kind of give maybe some additional detail. And if it's a little bit above them and they're starting to flounder, I'll jump in to help them, right? But that's how you kind of build your people up so that they become the next leaders. And so I always tell the other managers, there's no secret, right? They want a booklet with instructions, line 1, line 2, line 3 on how to build, great INT engineers. There is none, right? Just work with them on a day-to-day basis. That's it. That's as easy as it is.
I want to add to that by bringing up others, you make yourself more promotable,
Yes.
right? Because if you are the only person that can do your job, then it can actually derail possibility of you moving on to the next role.
And I'll agree with you because that's happened to me. When you're too good at your job, like, I'm just going to leave them there. It's easier to keep you there than to move you up and have somebody backfill. So that's absolutely true. Okay. So in the end, that's part of that ripple effect, right? Create that chain of knowledge that transfers, so on and so forth. And I don't know if some of you might have heard the story when I was talking on the side a little bit earlier where, I told my guy not to go to that board meeting to explain why we're, over budget. Because I didn't want him to end up, kind of hating this job, right? Because other people were unwilling to step up. His new managers were unwilling to step up, right? Because they're so used to just me going in there and solving the problem. I'm no longer there. They want to step up. They have to step up, right? But I told my guy not to do that, right? Let them do it. And so with that, I want to leave you with this quote. You're going to forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Okay. They're going to remember you because they're like, wow, he was great, or she was a great boss, awesome to work with, taught me everything. And when you succeeded is when you leave and they're like, wherever you go, you call me, I'll go, right? That's when you know you've succeeded. Right now, It's almost 6 years later. My engineers who have moved from Apple all the way across the country, back to wherever they lived or went to school to, they still call me up. They're like, "Are you doing anything? Because we want to work with you still." Then you've done it right. Okay, even after all these years, you may not have done everything perfect, but you left that lasting impression because you made them feel that it was safe to work with you and that you had their best interest in mind. That's the key. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. So with that, I know there wasn't a lot of questions. Maybe all of you are holding it in. But I did set a little speaker panel on the side. So if you guys wanted to ask questions, by all means, ask us anything you like that we haven't talked about before. That's it. So please do ask questions or anything you've been holding back. Anybody? Come on, somebody's got to ask a question. Yeah, go ahead, Pedro.
So I'm trying to kind of gather this question together, but like, let's say, like you guys talked about navigating political stuff within the company. How would you navigate that environment? Like you have the awareness to see all these different situations, and you're trying to market yourself, but you're not trying to oversell so you don't burn out. Like how would you navigate marketing yourself in that environment where you don't want to oversell and burn out?
Well, it's a long-term strategy to be able to build relationships with people and establish credibility and establish that you're not going to backstab anyone. You need to develop trust. You need to learn how to stay in your lane when appropriate and to step up as a leader when appropriate. I'll give examples. When I was the small town marketing guy, all of a sudden thrusted into a large corporation, a global corporation. One thing I didn't mention earlier is that City National Bank is owned by RBC. If anyone's ever heard of RBC, it's Royal Bank of Canada, which is one of the largest banking institutions in the world. And it's the biggest one in Canada. And it's on par with the JP Morgans of the world, the Wells Fargos of the world, just to give you some background. So part of that was this imposter syndrome. Here I am working in small companies throughout my career. All of a sudden I'm in a bigger environment. So there's an imposter syndrome. It took me a long time to get my footing. So it took a while to establish trust and credibility and to showcase, hey, I'm here, I can work collaboratively, and I can add value in that sense. So it's a long-term approach. I had to identify who the decision makers were. I had to identify who I can rely on. I identify who I can build alliances with, right? Because once I started developing alliances, it allowed me to not burn out and at the same time demonstrate my value in a way that made other people feel comfortable around me. Because it was like a small fish in a big fish in a small pond versus being in a small fish in a big pond. That transition period was very difficult for me. But now I'm a lot more comfortable in that environment. So it takes a while to develop relationships.
Great. I'm gonna add to that.
Pedro, was the question how to market yourself when you feel that you're burned down in a company, or was it?
I guess how do you navigate that environment? Just trying not to burn out yourself, but you're trying to meet a certain expectation, I guess.
I think well, with my background, since I've been going with from project to project, often with completely different teams. Um, I, I would just try to do the best at what I could. There's one project for this stereoscopic concert movie for U2, where I was known as like the calm guy. You know, there was like a lot of stuff going on. We were like one of the first companies who did this. I think it was actually the first digital 3D feature ever was this concert movie, and I just sort of, as we were trying to finish it and deliver it and not really ruin the budget, I was known as the calm person there, and that's how the senior leadership knew me. So more than that, I can't say. It was just like that. That's what I felt needed to happen at that time, and that's what I could bring. I didn't bring a lot of knowledge to it because it was a new industry, and even the people who were very good at it were still new at it. So that's what I brought, was sort of calm to it. So yeah.
All right, thank you. So, my perspective on that is going back to being strategic on what you say yes to. Don't say yes to everything, because the more you say yes to things, people start to figure out there's no way he can do all of this work, right? So that they start not to believe you, and you start to burn yourself out. Example, if you're working on a large program and you're one of 700 people on that program, you're just a cog in the wheel. So you're going to have to look at something to make yourself stand out if you want to stand out, right? For example, like me, I accepted being the lead for L-Cross that nobody wanted because it was a class of satellite no one's ever built, so they didn't think we would be able to do it for that kind of a budget, right? Our budget for the whole satellite was less than some test rack equipment, right? And so I was like, I'll take it, I'll do it. So I made my mark, right? We hit it. We did it under budget and under schedule. And so be selective in terms of what you want to do, and be a little calculating in terms of what it could mean for you further down the line. Now, you probably will have to put in extra work because what you're selecting probably does require more work than if you're one of 700 people, right? Because you're probably going to do multiple roles. But I think you put in a little bit extra work so that down the line, you don't burn yourself out by having to take all this extra work to prove yourself. Be strategic on what you select to say, look, I've done this, I've done that, I've done that, and you've proven yourself. So later on down the line, they come look for you versus you having to say, oh my gosh, you're 50 years old, don't have the energy you had before. Now I got to do 10 times the amount of work that I had to do before. Right. So be a little strategic. That's what I would tell you.
I think Dennis brings up a good point. I think about the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule. For those that may not be familiar, 80% of your output can come from just 20% of the projects. Okay, so you can be selective about which are highly visible, right? Which would move the needle. If you can focus on that 20%, that can carry you forward if you can get a big win under your belt. And it builds momentum, right? And then you'll develop a reputation. To your point, you don't have to say yes to everything, but you can be more selective about, okay, this particular project is important to the company. It's going to be highly visible. If you knock it out of the park, then you're on a golden path, right?
But remember that's also not to say that you won't be assigned things that you don't want to do. Like, for example, when they sent me over to go look at shutting down another facility, talk about having a target on your back everywhere you went, right? But again, didn't have a choice. So therefore you went and you did it. But the beauty of that one is that you're doing the executives a favor. So they remember you, even though it's not a task you would want to do ever, right? So again, be strategic about it.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean,
Certain things you can't turn down.
yeah, I mean, I'll give you, I guess context for my question, to take a personal question, right? Some of the things that I was navigating, I had no say in yes or no. You know, there were just expectations going on me, and I had to try my best, of course, put the long hours in. But it's just things that I had no control. And yeah, I agree to that expectation. It's like you just gotta do this and figure it out on your own.
Right.
I think you guys said some things that help navigate that specific thing, but just for context, some of the things I had no say in, to be honest.
You know, one of the other things too, and I can say this because I'm looking back at it now, is some of the things that I've been asked to do that I didn't want to do. If you reframe it into, okay, what is this task that they're asking me to do? Is it a new skill I can learn? Is there a network or person I can meet? You know, if I were to do this well, does that propel me in any other way? If maybe you reframe it that way, it could be, okay, it's doable, right? Versus this is unbearable. And so maybe ask yourself those questions too. Like, did I learn anything? If I did, I learned a new skill. Maybe it wasn't as bad, right?
So you mentioned networking within the company that you're working at. Do you have any tips when it comes to networking outside of your like immediate vicinity? It's one thing to like network with people you're working with every day, but how do you build a network outside of that and kind of maintain a connection with those people, like in other teams?
So my recommendation would be, depending on what you do and where you work at. Are you in engineering? Okay, so from an engineering standpoint, let's just say you participate in a design review. Okay, absolutely participate in a design review. Participate in these events that have other people from other groups there. Right, so in a design review, you'll have electrical, you have mechanical, you have MBI, you have integration program managers, executives. You'll have all these people there, and then you present. They'll start to know who you are, right? So go to those events. Don't shy away from them. Answer the questions, right, or ask the questions. Even asking the question, "Hey, I don't understand this. What does this have to do with that? And how do you plan to solve that?" Then they start. Who is this person, right? They ask a great question, and then they start to remember who you are. Right. So that's why I said don't just hide in your office or within your own group. Go to those events, go to those big events with lots of different people from other organizations, and then they start to see you and they start to know who you are. That would be my recommendation. That's one of the easiest ways.
Even outside of your company, there are opportunities to network everywhere. Even in this room, you look around, you can network everyone in this room. You can network with us. I think part of that is having your social media profile on point. If you're comfortable sharing, where are you with your social media today?
I think I'm okay. I mean, I try to be very like careful with what I post, but I wouldn't say it's like yours. But I don't know. I don't know if you want more detail, but
No, I mean, I think it starts with figuring out what your story is, what the brand, how you want to project yourself on social, right? So that way, when you meet folks in real life, just like here, we'll connect on LinkedIn, and I'll take a look. Someone like me, I'll take a look at it, and I'll probably make a snap judgment about you. Right? I'm not going to spend all day on your profile, but at least I'll get a good flavor. So, what kind of a presentation do you want to communicate in networking situations, right? Because I feel like the digital and the physical world, you need to have both. You need to have both.
One more thing I want to add too is, outside events, maybe sponsored by another group or sponsored by an executive, like, oh, hey, NG Group's going to go hiking, whatever. go with them, right? You meet new people, even though you may hate hiking, do it if you want to do the network.
Yeah.
But there's many different ways to be able to meet people, like Andy was saying. This event, I absolutely say, come to these events because like Pedro knows it. When they first started SharkSat, if they didn't come and I wasn't here presenting, they never would have met me and they would still be at ground zero, right? And so these kind of professional organizations is where you could potentially network with people and like just a couple people here from Northrop. I'm from Northrop before, right? And so you can still meet people from other areas. So go out there, go outside your network internally, go to those meetings, ask those questions, external events or professional events, most definitely go to those as well. Because like Andy was saying, even at a lot of these external events, you never know who's going to be there, right? I've presented at a high school before, and I was talking to one of the board of directors, and he goes, I never thought about it, but we're in Redondo Beach. He goes, probably half of Redondo Beach works in the aerospace industry, but you're not wrong about that, right? And he goes, yeah, I've invited my neighbor who's worked there forever. Never thought about it, and he's going to speak too. And so he invited him to the meeting. I go, who is this guy? He walks in. He and I worked together for many years. Right? You just don't know, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, expand your network and go to those events that you think is seemingly innocuous, but you never know who you meet there. And sometimes it might be zero, but you never know. It doesn't hurt, right? Yeah.
Living in LA and Southern California is a huge advantage, as you probably know. You may have come here to do aerospace, but if you're here and doing aerospace, you just have a lot of opportunity, and that's from someone coming from Hollywood. I mean, I was able to sort of look at. I think I might have even typed into Google like aerospace meetups in Los Angeles. And I went to something by Spaceworks. They have a bridge organization in El Segundo that meets, I think, a couple of times a month. So there are just a lot of things that you can do that you would not be able to do in other parts of the country. So there is a lot of stuff here. One of my particular interests is ocean science and oceanography, and I'm looking to sort of see how I can sort of map what I do onto something in that particular field. So I'm now looking at places where I can do that. I may have to go, down to San Diego or up to the Bay Area to do that, but it's really close. So go to meetup.com, put in a couple of keywords and see what comes out. Yeah, you're very fortunate to be in LA. It's like being a fish in the water. You don't really know that, that's where you are, but you're in an amazing place. A colleague of mine from a project I worked on with the U.S. Navy, he's got an initiative that he's developing that he's calling LA a strategic city because it has the tech, it's got the creative, it's got the finance, it's got sort of every aspect to do both small and large projects, and you can really tap in so many different places. So
let me quickly add to that. I remember years ago, Northrop wanted to move the headquarters, which they've done, but they wanted to move headquarters and all of Space Park in Redondo Beach to Virginia. And when we found out, every single one of us was like, congratulations, good luck. You all quit, right? So I was like, you had like 7,000 to 8,000 people, all their knowledge, best of luck to you, right? Because they wanted to train the people in Virginia. And so we're like, there's plenty of jobs right here. We're okay with staying, right? So you can tell the sharks were swimming, Boeing, Lockheed, everybody was cold calling everybody because they heard that we might be moving. So like, you want to come over here? We're not, right? And so the sharks were circling around. So then they realized, okay, we're not going to move. We'll stay. So you have a good opportunity in this area. you had a question?
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier, Dennis, that those that are older, like 40, have a shorter runway than those that are younger, like in their 20s, and that kind of resonated with me. And I think that's true. And I think people that are older. So my question is, what kind of like how do we navigate people that are older, navigate the shorter runway? And also, I think we have challenges being older because there is ageism. And I think I fallen on that the other end of that because I actually went to a Northrop Grumman networking meeting one time, and a recruiter told me straight to my face that older people have more baggage, that they're less likely to hire older people because they have more like stuff.
Yes.
So like regarding, I guess he's referring to like a background search, getting
Sure.
experience, all that.
Sure.
So, there's a disadvantage there. So how do you navigate that? And also, what kind of mindset should you have going in? Should you like what type of expectations should I have? Because I have a shorter runway compared to somebody with a longer runway.
So that's two-part question. So let me ask the first part, the answer to the first part. The first part is that's one person's perspective. Okay. HR does not necessarily represent the actual needs of the company. I'll give you an example. This is a true example. I remember years ago, I was looking for lots of engineers, and my counterpart was looking for technicians. And we were looking through a stack of resumes that HR gave us. I was looking through them like, what are these, right? I go, who's filtering these out? So we talked to HR, like, HR, we gave you some resumes to put in the system. Where are those, right? Like, I don't see them in the stack. They're like, oh, well, we filtered them out because we didn't believe they met the criteria. I'm like, who are you to say who meet this criteria? We're the technical experts. We want to see them, right? They have experience. And so we actually had a pretty heated argument on the phone about who has the authority, right, to hire who. And so we're like, well, okay, then I'll call them directly. We'll bypass you, right? We'll talk to them directly. So just to make that long story short, it's not necessarily that they know everything, right? But it is one person's perspective. So you can talk to another person and they'll tell you, look, we're short on knowledge, right? We need people with experience. Look, they're bringing back people who are 65, 72. They're recalling, people that are retired, right? And so it's not necessary. Don't just take one person's view on it. You can be in one company and everybody has a different perspective on it, right? So it's just finding that right person and getting that foot in the door, right? Everybody, like I've been in panel interviews where there's 5 people and each one has a different perspective, right? I test for personality. One guy asked, what animal are you if you would be an animal? And, all of us are, embarrassed about that, but, everybody has their own perspective on it, right? Yeah. The second part of your question is, if you have a shorter runway, how would you navigate it? You may have a shorter runway, but remember, you do have more experience than some of the younger people too as well. So the question is, how do you leverage that experience to go where you want to go and do what you want to do, right? Although you're 20, you don't have that experience. And so again, they're a person with no authority who's trying to influence the world. You at being in the 40s or 50s, you have authority and influence. What do you want to do with it, right? You do have a shorter time frame, but you have more to work with.
You'd agree that you want to try to leverage those transferable skills.
Absolutely.
And that's what I've done in the past.
Absolutely.
Networking meetings, I'm like, I have a lot of transferable skills.
Yes.
And that seems like it does work.
Yeah. And so now it's how do you, like Andy and Rick was saying, how do you craft your transferable skills story from this industry to that industry, or from this project in this company to this project in the same company, right? How do you craft your story of who you are and what you can bring to the table? that's going to be the key at this point of, whether you get hired or not, or whether you get that position or not.
Makes sense.
You guys want to add to that?
And one of the other things that you can do is also create like your own entity. You can still, by all means, go after the job that you want, and you can also perhaps you can gel some of your experience and turn it into a product of some kind. It's because I really love audiobooks, and my husband's an audiobook narrator, and we just have a very good sense of what the audiobook field is. We feel that we know what it's looking for. So we're starting up a publishing company where we're actually publishing. We're starting with some public domain work from the 20s, but really sort of hard hitting and sort of putting a new perspective on them. So maybe there's something that you have done in the past that you could turn into something that's, I hate to use the word content because it's sort of generic, but that's something that's saleable, something that, where the revenue goes right to you, that it doesn't come through a company.
Yeah, I think I was kind of more, I had kind of that kind of entrepreneurial, like, when I was younger, then I'm older. Now I'm kind of like, I don't know, I don't know. Or like, feel like I have, like, there's not really anything specific, but like I had that kind of like I'm going to change the world type of mentality when I was younger. But,
Yeah. And I'm not really always just talking about like change the world
yeah,
stuff.
I know. Just
But
finding
things
like a niche something that you can do that brings.
it's another income stream to you.
Yeah.
And that's really important just over your entire career, is that any way that you can get
I
an
like
additional
company.
income stream is good. It's something to lean back on during hard times, and it's also something that you could maybe expand later.
But
But
remember,
I think that I've kind of experimented with that. Like, thought of like I'm really good with computers. I thought about maybe doing like technical support, helping people. Even one project we're doing right now is on digitizing all my parents' slides and pictures. So I was thinking maybe I might go make like a business of that.
Yeah.
Doing like.
one thing to also look at and to, I guess, reframe is not, how do I become that billionaire by building something, really flashy or something like that. Take this to heart. The person who owns Waste Management, who collects all the trash, she's a billionaire. She's a billionaire trash collector, and she's absolutely happy to say it. So even the most mundane things in the world, right, has an impact.
Yeah.
Which is why in our industry right now, everybody thinks, let's chase to the moon. Let's go to Mars, Elon Musk. You know where the real money is? The real money is the infrastructure. There's no GPS on the moon. There's no PNT. There's no space tourism. There's no food packaging to get to the tourists and all this kind of. There's a lot of stuff in the background that could make a lot of impact, a lot of money that a lot of people don't think about, right? That we take for granted down here. So hopefully that'll reframe that, you're not necessarily behind.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that struck out with what you just said was what the HR person said is highly illegal.
Yeah.
I don't know how they can get away with saying what they said in the public statement.
Yeah, no.
But that doesn't mean that's not what they think.
Yeah.
So in many ways, that's the harsh truth. And the beauty of the engineering aerospace industry, from what I understand, is like, if anything, you have a much longer runway. Okay, because in that world, they value a lot of senior folks. They value a lot of senior perspectives, and bringing people back from retirement stuff. So actually, you're in a good space in that sense. But yeah, go on. No, but yeah. Another thing I'll say to you is, like, if you can diversify, right? So you're not just completely reliant on a 9 to 5. right? There are other ways to diversify, whether it's investing on the side or starting like a small business on the side. You can do stuff separately that will generate an income and waiting for the right opportunity in that side. So you're not completely relying on that.
I think that's kind of my thinking with having 4 jobs right now and doing acting, just trying to,
Yeah.
to find something that,
Mhm.
find going different ways.
And to what we talked about earlier, depending on who your audience is, you can craft your narrative, right? If you're in an aerospace type of networking event, you don't necessarily have to bring up the event planning or the acting stuff because it's not as relevant
Yeah.
to that audience. If you're at a marketing social meetup, the supply chain may not be as relevant, but you can lean on to other parts, right?
But here's
Yeah.
to add to that is your acting, if you really wanted to, you can always, for example, oh well, you know what? I'm not an actor, but so correct me if I'm wrong. I'm able to think on the fly, right? I'm able to change. I'm adaptable. I'm flexible. A lot of engineers or people in industry are not, right? And so as an actor, right, you're going to have to ad lib. You're going to have to change things. You're just going to have to think on the fly based on the situation. That is a skill in itself, right? And so that's something you can market. Well, you know what? I've done these commercials, blah, blah. I've done so many, changes and, I work on the fly and all that. And then that could be think, oh, I can see how that works if things were changed. I don't get flustered, right? We just work through the problem and just get it done. And so those are the kind of things how you craft your story from one industry to the next. So you kind of help them see it.
Like if you're an actor, about, and I come from a theater background and have been a member of a theater organization for about 30 years now. So I have met and interact with a lot of actors. And one thing a lot of actors know how to do well is perform. So they definitely know you could coach someone on performing. You could do performance coaching from your background in acting for people who may have to do public speaking for their work, where it's like nothing to you. Acting is, public speaking in a way. So maybe there's something there that you could coach people on that. So there's
And one other thing, not to get discouraged is, you know what? Right now, I go talk to people. I just for the heck of it, sometimes I just put in my name for a position. I get turned down. I don't have enough experience. I'm sorry, the picture everybody else.
You did this last time we saw each other. You wouldn't be able to be hired for Northrop Grumman again. If you
That's correct.
Yeah.
But only for the people who know me. And so it's not necessarily that you don't have the skills. It's just it didn't meet the right funnel or to the right person that makes the decision. And there's a story out there where this one guy who owns the company goes, how come he's not getting people? Right. And so he put his own resume into the HR system and he got rejected. And so he went down to the HR department to find out why. And because they were using automation. So he fired the whole HR department. He goes, I cannot get a job at my own company. Right. And he started it. Yeah. So it's not necessarily you, right? It is a numbers game, but there are things that you can boost to help your odds out. So
yeah.
Any other questions anybody has?
Yeah, just kind of add on. I think somehow you're right that the kind of personal imaging and also social media is very important. One thing I think is need to be consistent. That's what I'm trying to add. For example, these 2 students, we always choose them from college, and they start to participate. 1 hour, 2 hours from there, multiple times. Mixer happy. And one of them is internship in should I say the name? A major aerospace company. And now we heard the girl is doing research here. So, and I'm speaking for me or some of our members. We got recently we got some inquiry from startup company. They want to, this for a younger group. They say, hey, they have some internship opportunity. Do you know somebody? That if more consistent, we will be able to relay the information. And the other way around, if you're telling, hey, we are looking for some opportunity, and then maybe someone in your network will be able to provide such information. But these you sometimes you cannot find very openly, in the company posting. They probably post something very general there.
Right.
So I think people connect with you, 3 level panelists. I think that's also very important, and connect to attendees.
Like I've told my nephews before we were in computer science and engineering at Cal State Pomona. I tell them, look, the only reason that you know me is because we're related. So you can ask me anything you want. But if you come to this event here, right? If you don't come to this event, there will be never an opportunity you meet Rick. There'll be never an opportunity you ever meet Andy, right? You'll never meet any of the other participants here and their backgrounds and what they do and all this kind of stuff. This is one of those where you have to go outside of your comfort zone to actually come here and go meet people. Right. And I think one of the was Angelina. She's a prime example, right? Goes to every event, met everybody, and it's changed her trajectory in terms of where she's going. She's that prime example. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean nowadays the way the job market is, that's my first slide. It's a trash job market. Okay, who's going to vouch for you? Right. In many ways, you need to find a warm lead that can refer you to opportunities, right? Because a lot of these job postings, it goes out into a black hole. You submit a resume, you submit, and you get filtered out through applicant tracking system. But if you can have someone that's kind of in the inner world, if you will, I mean, in fact, with the PMI Orange County chapter, I referred at least 2 people to open positions on my team. It turned out to be a little bit too far for them, but hey, I gave them an opportunity because I know who they are. I'm volunteering with them, and I can vouch for them, right? Because at the end of the day, if I'm referring someone, I'm putting my reputation on the line, right? So that's where people are more likely to give someone a chance if someone they know can vouch for them.
I think that's so important to know because I think that all of us have been applying to just hundreds of jobs and not getting any response. And because of that, we're kind of having to question our strategy and improve. And the thing I'm learning is that there's a balance between, applying. You want to apply very focused, not just apply to 50 jobs a day. But now for me personally, I'm applying to just 1 job per day, maybe 2, but it has to be a really focused job. And also I am doing networking, I'm rekindling relationships, reaching out to people that I worked with, reaching out to people that are in a different company that have the same job. And I wasn't doing that before. I was just applying. And as I'm trying to get something finalized after this temp job I'm doing now is over in March. But I think I kind of lost my train of thought, but I was just kind of, I think it's more than just applying the job. It's about building relationships and not necessarily doing that with the intent that, get me a job, but just the intent of trying to get a better understanding of how to get in a certain company or what I need to do a certain job.
I also think too, it's maybe do the things that's more unexpected. I don't know if you've gone to industry trade fairs, like space industry trade fairs.
I went to one, yeah, when all of the employees were let off of what was it, Virgin and Galactic. They had Long Beach had a career fair.
Not a career fair, a industry fair. So meaning
there's one coming up in Anaheim. I think it's called the Space.
No, it was a space. They had the one when all the employees from Virgin Galactic got laid off. Long Beach had a space fair where all of the aerospace companies were at a place, and it was for just Virgin Galactic employees?
No. This is completely different. This is where, different companies show off their products, and then, so in one of those industry trade fairs. And so I was actually quite surprised. I go to those trade fairs every once in a while. Like I think it's in Long Beach Space, this space conference or something. What's that?
Space tech.
Oh yeah, Space Tech. Yeah, Space Tech Expo. So I was walking through, and sometimes I go to these events just to kind of keep up with what's going on. And I see some of the banners, and down at the bottom it says, "We are accepting resumes for internships or positions." I go, wow, at a trade fair, right? At an industry, product trade fair. So I would say expand, go to those, because a lot of the people at some of those bigger events are executives. Okay. And so if they like you, they'll push it through. They're not going to be HR people there, right? They're going to be the managers, they're going to be the technical people, they're going to be executives there. That's where my engineer, that girl I was telling you about, she went to that space event up in Utah. You remember what that one is?
Small cells?
Small set.
No, it's a huge one. It's where the whole government, Space Force, everybody's there. And so I told her, go, right? All Northrop Grumman executives, all Lockheed executives, all of the government, Space Force generals, everybody's there. And so that's where you network and you meet people. And she met one of the VPs of Blue Origin there, and they offered her a job, right? And so that's why I say maybe expand a little bit to see at some of these events of who's going to be there or who's traditionally there. And that's how you ask them about the product. I'm interested in this, right? I want to be in this industry. I've done this before. And, you chit chat, but you're chit chatting potentially with the right people.
Yeah.
Actually,
With the Mars Society conference,
That's one of them too.
is that at their one?
Yes, that's one
Yeah,
of them too.
TechCrunch had one a few months ago that I went to. Yeah, I've seen them.
But again, you meet high level people that you traditionally wouldn't meet anywhere else.
Yeah.
that's actually part of the AirWave national conferences. Like AirWave has 4 national conference called forums. You have SciTech, last month, and then you have aviation, defense, and Ascent. Ascent is for space. So actually, that's it. In Ascent, I met people from Voyager Space and all different companies. They also have trade show and also presentations. And each of the companies, they actually have a small room. You can meet with the hiring manager individually. So they have private room if you want to talk to them. So I saw a lot of people, young or senior, they went to individual room. So yeah, they will also try to do this effort, and there are also a lot of executives in the AirWave forum as well.
Because if you go to the traditional routes through LinkedIn, through recruiters, you're going to be one of 10,000. You go to these non-traditional routes, AIAA, you go to those industry trade fairs, you may be one of 100. So your odds are better, right? That doesn't mean those are the only ones you go to, but you expand your network, and your odds go up.
Yeah.
You also get a feel for the company too.
Correct.
You can say, what, this is not going to be a match just because of the vibe. So,
and then you learn about the product so that when you talk at the next event, you're smarter. Right? Oh, this company, has this. I saw it at the previous event, blah, blah. How does that interact with your, so, you get smarter too. Think of it as both as a research into the industry and potentially meeting new people. I mean, that's what these guys did. They are passing out resumes for internships and jobs at the Space Expo. Yeah. And I actually worked on a couple of things, right?
Yeah, some of the RF team members got jobs.
Yeah. It works.
Yeah, actually, I actually have if you can make some comment, because you're talking about this regular track or employment, ascending management or something like that. But there's another route in this career. It is startup or like government contracting, individual, something like that. And we already chatted that Elon Musk, he was very smart. Initially, he engaged with our chapter when he first came to establish company, Hustle. So he was very, involved with AirWave Los Angeles section. So could you, kind of make a suggestion for people interested in that kind of route, and apply for what you were saying here? How for them, is there any kind of suggestion, for those people in this different.
I would say for me, my suggestion would be if you have a lot of experience, like for example, I was kind of recruited to be part of, I guess, I don't know, panelists, but as a technical expert with a startup company who invests in other startups. So they wanted me to be kind of some of those people that are there to help vet, right? And so if you have that experience, that's an opportunity, for you to kind of get into the startup world. But the other one is if you really want to meet some of these startup companies, go to those trade fairs. I've met a lot of people at these trade fairs that are just a two-person company and they're just showing their product, right? And they're trying to get off the ground, and you can either join them, you can help them, or make a connection with them. So I've chatted with a lot of people. So there's a lot of opportunities.
A lot of trade fairs, though, you need to have some type of connection. You need to.
No, a lot of them are open. The one in Utah, that huge one, that one does require. Actually, no, that one just required a $3,000 fee, which is but like Space Tech Expo is free. I went to one in DC last year. That one was, I think it was like $125, to enter. So you can. It's okay.
I had Space Tech on my calendar, but I didn't go to it.
Actually, I've been reversed. You are looking for people looking for opportunity in the startup. I was thinking if you are somebody, say Mike or Pedro, want to start up their own company, and in that kind of route, that kind of different career development, or somebody, he has his own company and work, want to get government contract, and with this personal branding thing, how would you help? Apply to help anything different from you are looking for regular employment.
So I'm actually doing a little bit of that right now. I think it really boils down to what your product is, what you're trying to do, and whether or not you're really going to see it to the end, right? So really gonna have to believe in what you have. You need to have a product, right? You can't sit there and go, oh, well, I want to get the money first and I'll figure out the product. It doesn't work that way, right? The government gives money a certain way, the VCs give money a certain way, and so there's certain rules that you're going to have to follow along, right? So I would say learn what those rules are. They're all online, right? A lot of these companies online who invest in startups, they have information on their websites to tell you, oh, this is what you need for series, whatever funding, right? Or even for us to take a look at it. So I would say research, go look at all that. Got to have a product ready to go. If you want government funding, right? Go figure out what it takes to be government contracting, what it takes to submit a proposal and so on and so forth. And then go to those industry specific events. If it's meant for military, then go to the Space Force conference in Orlando every year, right? Go meet the generals. Go meet all the war, Space Force fighters, right? They're all there, along with a couple of vendors and stuff like that. Go to those specific events, right? Just learn as much as you can by going there. That doesn't mean that you're gonna get something out of each event, but eventually it's a numbers game. The more you go to, the more something will hit stick. Right.
I'm a proponent of working in startups. I mean, I shared in my presentation where I was a small town marketing guy. I was the head of marketing for like a small company. I didn't know at the time, but actually it really propelled me in my career because I wore a lot of different hats. I had to hustle, I had to grind. I was doing marketing campaigns, but I was also out in the community, right? Drumming up business, building partnerships. That helped prepare me for the next level. So I feel like working in a startup, there are a lot of benefits to it. Like even if it fizzles out, so what? You got the experience under your belt. You're developing high income skills. Skills are available in the marketplace that you can parlay for the next role. I mean, I think about college football. I don't know if anyone are college football fans here. But I think about coaches that start up maybe their coaching career in like a small town or small university. They do a knockout, bang up job, but guess what? They propose them for the next opportunity at a bigger school, at a bigger name college, and you start developing a name. So I've always taken inspiration from that, where a lot of coaches start at high school level, right? They start their careers at high school level, do a really good job, and then start positioning for bigger and better things.
Anything, Rick?
No?
Since you work a lot of businesses and stuff like that, it's
No, nothing, really nothing to add in terms of, most of the small businesses that I do are things that, sort of I've generated, and they're ultra small, they're like 1 or 2 people. So, nothing that's been venture capital financed or anything like that. But I can say that, like, being sort of a more experienced person, older person, also, I think with that age, I find that it's a lot easier to select what I really want to do, rather than just sort of say, yeah, I can do this, I could do this, I could do this, but what I really want to do. So it's are much fewer. And so the choices are actually easier. The older I get, I find. So
that's where you're not starting over from scratch. You're just utilizing what you know to open up the doors. Right. It's just figure out what door you want to open up and how do you get it. That's the key.
No, I would just want to echo what you said about you have to have a product, something like that. Actually, we have a member, he also works in Hollywood. So he wants to promote a film, the aerospace art film he made. And not only we have a screening, film event in Cal State Long Beach, and he has been involved in, the airway event. But one thing I want to say is that one time he said he wanted to show his film, on International Space Station. He tried to contact NASA office headquarters for a year or two, it never worked out. But he somehow met one of our members, Peter, a retired colonel, who used to train astronauts. Somehow they met in our event, and they worked out for 3 months, and ended up his film was shown on space station eventually. So we have an article on that. So I agree with you. You have to be kind of have something, and then you try to brand. The thing. Why it matter? Why it's important to show this on the space station? Even though it takes some effort, but gradually, with this, and you keep trying to work around it, it seems to be very successful.
And also, everybody says startup company, it's all great. It's not easy. There's a lot of work. I mean, you're not going to sit there and go, oh, I'm just going to do the technical. No, you're going to be the technical. You're going to be the salesperson. You're going to be the marketing person. You're going to be everybody. And you have to be willing to do it. Right. And so there's a lot of work, lots of work. And especially if you don't know those skills, it's even harder because now you got to learn those skills too. Right. Unless you bring somebody like Andy on board or Rick on board, then it becomes easier.
Hopefully somebody, get your help.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, last week we Elevate our section has an event with a company that started to make a first flying car. It's called Aleph Aeronautics. So the CEO, going to talk about how they start a company and their kind of work. So you are right. The last thing you have to be very, have some kind of approach, and they got some people who were able to help for funding the company, and some people were able to execute it. They got some kind of group. I don't become the names. They invest, right, into their seed money.
Absolutely great.
And now there are some local STEM group. They are trying to define the company to show their first flying car in LA. It's getting growing bigger.
It's all about that.
One quick question. Andy, can you tell us more about what the PMP process is like what the test is? Just kind of curious what that's about, I guess.
Sure. it's called the Project Management Professional Certification. And generally, you need to have, I think, at least 3 years of work experience managing projects in order to even qualify to take the exam. If you don't have the work experience for it, then there is a more quote unquote junior certification. It's called the CAP-M. So that's an option too. But the PMP is a global standard that designates that you have been trained on the best practices of what project management is. There are stakeholder management, work breakdown structures, and a lot of different methodologies. There's agile, predictive, or a hybrid approach on how to manage projects. And through the PMP, there are a lot of training courses that you can take. And in many ways, that's how I learned AI through PMP. They have a lot of training seminars that you can attend. So I really encourage you to look into it. It's not a magic bullet, you know. It's not going to automatically lead to bigger and better things, but it's going to be part of your brand, part of your rubber stamp, right? That, hey, you passed the test, and you bring forth a certain set of skills that I highly value. Okay. I also will share with you that, as I mentioned earlier, that I never even knew about the PMP. I was like you, like, what's a PMP? I've heard in the background, like, yeah, a lot of engineering people have to get the PMP, so I never thought it was for me. And if anything, I kind of looked down upon project management. I thought, hey, I want to be a VP of marketing. Why would I want to be a project manager? It sounds so junior. It sounds entry level. So that's when I opened my eyes and looked into it. It's like, hey, there's actually a robust world that I just didn't know about. You know, I came from the marketing side. Marketing people don't know about project management. They just take it for granted. So hopefully that provides some context there. And you have to think whether it's right for you or not. I had to evaluate that, hey, PMP with marketing, that's something a lot of people don't think about from the marketing side. I have to think about what differentiates me. If I can get the PMC certification, combine it with my marketing background, that sets me apart from everyone else.
So it's like doing project management or getting PMP certification, or doing engineering and getting professional engineering, certification.
I mean,
right?
I was the project manager at Sharkside, and I didn't know what I was doing, kind of figuring out as I
That's
go.
why I was there to answer your questions.
And I've heard of the PMP. I mean, my dad's a project manager, but he never really. I mean, working with him growing up, we were very hands-on, DIY. You know, we're making it. He's helping me with school projects, or we're working on a renovation in the bathroom. You know, so he wouldn't really he wouldn't tell me about the project management aspect. I would see him on Excel, like, oh, he's making budgets or whatever. Like, so I was just curious, kind of learning more about the PMP. You know, how they go about getting it, the CAP-M. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So like the junior, maybe I don't have all the experience
Right.
out there yet, so I can look into that.
And if you think about it, this is something that I've come to realize. Not everyone's good at project management. Some people are just not good with the details. People are not good with like corralling herding cats, right? Some people are just not skilled at that, and that's okay. And I had to make that decision for myself that, hey, this is something that I'm actually naturally good at. I enjoy that. Why not lean into it? Especially when I got pipped back in 2022. I had come to Jesus moments like, hey, if I don't pivot, I may not have a job anymore. And that happened not too long ago, right? So it's very fresh in my mind. So I was able to pivot, and now I'm thriving, right? I'm glad to say I'm thriving now, but because I was able to parlay that experience and to add to my skill set, I'm in a much better place than where I was before.
I think in aerospace, people probably don't mention PMP as much, but I think that's system engineering. I know Caltech and USC have very strong system engineering, training program. They might have certificate or something like that. So I think in aerospace, people generally mention it's kind of terminology. They call it system engineering, but it's actually they also use Agile, those kind of things. It's just a different term. What do you call it?
We generally, we don't get, the certification. You just do the job,
Right.
right? And so generally, like, if you really think about it, every manager, every senior engineer, every program manager, and every VP, theoretically, you should probably get the certification because that's your daily job, right? You're managing billions of dollars, hundreds of people, imagining people from customers to, your own team and expectations all around. And so, you're constantly, firefighting. That's PMP, right? You just got to organize and keep everything on track.
Actually, right. I mean, it's just like, well, I don't know if I'm right or not. It's a little bit like an MBA, PMP. These are very good, So, but if you are a manager, you are very good at this. You may or may not need certificate.
Well, you can answer that. You got both. So.
Well, again, it stems from insecurity. I mean, I'm trying my best not to get laid off. I'm trying my best to remain employable, marketable. So I think that it stems from that. And at the end of the day, I feel better as a professional knowing that I have that under my belt. And coming to the realization, we're all project managers, right? It's planning a kid's birthday party. That's a project, right? There's a certain sequence that you need to do in order to successfully launch a project. An event is a project, right? So everything is a project. Everything is marketing. You're marketing yourself. You're in a job interview. You're selling your value proposition, right? You're trying to get someone to commit. So that's when I started feeling, hey, this is the path for me. Because if I can demonstrate that I'm a subject matter expert in marketing and now project management, and my next step is AI, then my goal is to create that career moat, right? To differentiate myself from everyone else that only does marketing or everyone else that only does project management, right? So that's my my goal.
That's why I always look at Rick here because he's done so many industries and so many projects in each one of those. He knows how to pivot, and he's been selling it correctly because he's still around. So there's a method to it, right? And so certain people are great at it, and others are not so much.
I think you're spot on, Dennis, because I find it very difficult to pivot outside of financial services and banking and creating space. I remember in grad school, I applied for marketing jobs at Taco Bell or or other industries. I found it very difficult. So because it's so difficult, I pivoted and decided to lean into financial services. That is my niche, right? That's what I want to be known for. That's part of my key, right? I want to be known as a financial services marketer, marketing, project management, and yeah, that's my strategy. So I do look up to like the Ricks of the world that could pivot industries, sell like the transferable skills and add value and navigate a career out of it. Because it's not easy to do, especially in today's marketplace where you're competing against people that have been in industries in like 20, 30 years, right, of experience. How do you translate this transferable skill?
That's why I've always, Rick probably remembers all of that. How'd you get into this aerospace thing, from that? Right? Because even I'm trying to figure out like how did he end up here?
I worked for a production company that needed visual effects people, and then I did well on one project, a Blumhouse sort of low budget horror project, and I got an opportunity to either work on a Muppet TV show or a project for the U.S. Navy, and so I chose the U.S. Navy project. So even though the Muppet project probably would have had like more connections and maybe more sort of follow on, the Navy project was something that interested me much, much more. And it led to this. So, yeah, so I guess it was,
That's the strategic side.
yeah, it's sort of like, it's like really what I wanted to do. And
I had a few thoughts regarding the PMP.
Yeah.
Because when I worked in aerospace, I went back to school. I went to University of UCLA to finish a program in project management. So the PMP is great. I was going to ask you, Dennis, how in this aerospace industry, how they look upon the PMP. You kind of answered my question. Most of them just want to get the work done. So what I was going to say is, from my experience, because I've interviewed for a lot of jobs and I put the PMP out there, I'm like, oh, I took a program at UCLA to, project manage, it's based on the project management. I thought they were going to look upon that a lot higher than it was. But then the next question they're going to be asking me is, well, what are the projects you worked on? Then by putting it out there, then they're going to start really asking a lot of, probing questions about projects. And I think in order to get the PMP, you have to have those 3 years of project management experience. So if you don't have the experience in project management back up the PMP, I don't think it's going to do a lot of good. And I think it's a great certificate, but I think the issue is, you're right, we all do project management, but I think when you're telling people, oh, I'm a project manager, I have the PMP, it's great to have, but I don't think that a lot of people know what it is. So when I'm when I'm telling people during an interview that I have it, it's true that we should both be able to relate how good it is to be a good project manager. We both do it day to day, but on the hand, I think I overvalue it in telling people like they don't know what it is. So that's what I would say. I would say it's good to get the experience rather than just getting the certificate without that experience.
So let me answer the multi-part
Sure.
that you had. So the first one is, getting that certification is twofold. The reason I never got it was because I spent all my time in the same organization or same field, right? And so everybody knows me based on my work, right? They know I manage programs. And so by me having a PMP certification doesn't necessarily buy me anything, because they're like, yeah, I got it. I know you can do it, right? Having that certification definitely helps if I was moving to another company who doesn't know me, okay? That's where it helps. So you have to look at it by how you can market that skill, right? And probably Andy can add more to that.
Back it up by your experience.
Right. So internally, I don't need it because everybody knows my reputation. If I'm going externally, I probably would want to have it because they don't know who I am. Yeah. So they can see my experience. And with that, it probably solidifies a little bit of an image of who I am going forward, right? The other part of it is, having that PMP under your name versus experience. I think it goes hand in hand. It goes with each other.
Yeah.
And if you're going into the industry, like say, for example, engineering, especially aerospace, where not many people value that kind of certification, I would reframe it as not just PMP. They may not know what that acronym, because we're full of acronyms, right? Because they'll think it's something else. Just put project management certification, right? Just write it out so that they see it, or whatever software they're using scanning picks it up, right? Because that may not be an acronym that's in their system that picks it up, but project management is, right? And so you have to play that game of, you might have to kind of lead them to where you want them to think, right? But if you go into the financial world, you go into some other world where it's required to have that certification, you can put that acronym down and they'll probably pick it up and get it.
Yeah,
I will definitely prioritize experience over everything else.
yeah.
Prioritize experience and add an MBA or add a PMP on top of it when you don't need it. And part of it is the whole build your well before you're thirsty. Get those items when you don't need it, but prioritize on experience. Obviously, there's always that chicken and the egg situation, right? How am I going to get work experience if I can't get a job? All right. How can I get a job without work experience? There's always a dilemma. But I'm encouraging you that there are other opportunities. In my case, marketing. Yeah, there are opportunities to get marketing experience just by volunteering at a local church. Volunteering at PMI Orange County. There are so many committees that they need experience for. And then once you get that experience on your belt, it's how you spin that story, right? They're going to start grilling you. What kind of projects have you managed? For me, it was like the student-run credit union branch I showed you. That was a huge project, right? I had to get so many stakeholders involved and so many superintendents involved and the legal, the contracts, so that was my story. That's how I was able to spin it.
Or even like you said, charity events, right?
Yes.
That are free, that they actually want people to help manage, right?
Yeah.
That,
I was
that could be
telling them
experience.
how I applied to take the PMP test, and at that time I put all my projects were school projects, but it wasn't good enough to
Right.
actually qualify for the test.
Right.
So
And so that's where like external, more organizational stuff
Yeah.
would help. And those charity events and things like that are very, like, and you said they're out there. It's easy. They actually want people to help organize and manage those. So I think that's a good opportunity for people who really want to jump in and get that experience. Doesn't have to be necessarily experience within that industry, because again, organizing is organizing. Managing a budget is managing people is managing people. This industry versus that is small nuances you learn along the way. Okay.
Can I kind of say that two very important message today are that number one, you can be your own marketing manager. Number two, if people need help, they can ask you for further advice.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Very good.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody
Thank
for
you.
coming. I really appreciate you sitting through our talk.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. I hope you guys have stuff like that. But, we'll be around if you still have more questions.